could say that in the beginning I was working much with environmental issues and had some feelings that there were many problems tackling environment because either these activities are being co-opted by economical power, so at the end you serve to give a good image for big corporations, or you are very naive to talk only about conservation and not talk about the conditions of livelihood. So in this aspect, with my criticism to the environment movement in Brazil, I started discussing economy and then started knowing about the movement of social solidarity economy in Brazil. And then I got rapidly involved and at some time I was invited to work as executive secretary to the Brazilian movement of solidarity economy, the Brazilian form of solidarity economy, and this is what I've done from 2005 to 2012, and then afterwards I was also called to start working with RIPESS, the international network of social solidarity economy, as operations manager, and then I worked at the international level from 2012 to 2014, 15, something like this. And then with the time, working in this part of trying to build policies and articulate the social movement differently in the different countries. It's kind of abstract sometimes. So after many years working on that, I decided that it would be nice to go live in a small town and try to work on solidarity economy more locally. That's what I've been doing. So I'm now living in southeast of Brazil, south of the state of Minas Gerais, and we have several initiatives going on here. In agroecology market from local producers. We are beginning a movement, building a network of producers in agroecology, organic farmers. Also, we've built a local store, solidarity economy, agrarian reform, agroecology, products from all over Brazil after so many experiences. So I had lots of contacts of people, of organizations, cooperatives, associations around Brazil, producing so many beautiful things that we decided to build this in the center of the town. And now it's after 2 years and a half, we are quite well recognized by the city, by the popular people. And it's a way also to expressing or to giving visibility to what's going on. So other forms of doing economy, showing that it's possible to think differently, to produce differently, and to buy differently, to eat differently. And so it's a kind of point of reference that we are having here in Brazil, in Canada, sorry. And we are articulated with the national network of social solidarity economy stores or points of commercialization that's also growing up in Brazil. And I've been also being called to help giving some classes in the school, speeches, or not only here. Sometimes I get some invitations and then I try to contribute to some processes that are going on around Brazil, but lightly. Now I have a son who was born 3 years ago, so now I like a lot to be at home. And also, after stopping with the international movement, we built with some friends a cooperative that offers services of technology, information technology, software, open source software to support the struggles of social movements in Brazil. And we're doing quite well. We are very happy about it. It's a cooperative called EITA, which means Education, Information and Technology for Self-Management, para autogestão, para autogestão. So we've been building lots of informational systems into broad areas. One area is to reinforce the capacities of the social movements to organize and to make internal communication and management, because normally the softwares that are available are either proprietary, or if they are free, they are focused on capitalist enterprises or capitalist organizations. They're not thought to be done by horizontal democracy, or by people who are from poor classes of the country. And this is one of the aspects we've been developing a lot. So we call it the kitchen of the social movement, so organizing the house. And the other aspect that we've been working on is supporting and reinforcing the visibilizations of alternatives, be it in women's initiatives, in cooperatives of agriculture, agroforestry, and so on and so on, social economies. So these two aspects are two big problems that we face in the progressive social movements in general. Getting organized internally, we lose a lot of energy, and with very spare resources to get organized, because money is not something that flows a lot in the social movement. So you must do many things with very little. So technology could help in this. And the other aspect is visibilization is a problem, because we have the mainstream media that just boycotts absolutely any perspective of society that is not centered in capitalism. So that's where I am now. Well, there are many difficulties. We have the common ground difficulties that we find everywhere, and we are discussing a social solidarity economy, or when we're discussing even cooperativism, which is different, but normally is the being recognized by the public policies as a means of development, as a path to another perspectives of development. And this recognition would be expressed by public policies of financing, of opening spaces of commerce, privileged criteria for public public consumption. When the public sector consumes, it could use the criteria, social, environment, and work conditions criteria to buy their stuff. We have the biggest buyer in Brazil is the state. It's around 50% of our GDP comes from the state, municipalities, from the states, and from the country. So financing, getting openings for commerce, and for some privileges in public consumption from the public sector. Education, so getting the tools to get organized, and all the area of production quality, some benefits in terms of taxes and so on. So this is the mainstream that we always feel as difficulties. But I would say that what I feel is that these difficulties, they hinder a bigger one, which for me is much more important than these that are more practical, although they are really important. I would say that the organization of society and democracy itself is really based on economic powers. So we don't have the conditions in terms of society, the ideal conditions for social solidarity economy to grow. So the concept of success or failure of a social solidarity economy initiative is not well analyzed if we use the actual society as the basis. So we need a change in paradigm, which has to do with the way people live, the way people conceive happiness, the self-realization. So sometimes I see that even inside the movement of social solidarity economy, we see social solidarity economy as a chip, a phone, a mobile phone chip, that you could remove the capitalist chip and put another chip of social solidarity economy and have the same mobile phone, which would be the organization of the society. I don't see it like this. I see that it's a dialectic process where society must change for social solidarity economy to flourish. Solidarity economy has to flourish so that society changes. So it comes from both ways. So it's a very hard and difficult process. It's a process of economic transformation, much more than looking at the individual initiative and saying, wow, it works well. It produces for the people and has good results. It's not like this. We cannot look at the singular initiative as a hero that must work and strive in the same conditions as the capitalist enterprises, companies. So we've seen so many experiences where when social solidarity economy grows and it becomes somehow important in some sector of the economy, it gets smashed by economic powers that are related by lobbying to political powers, and then we have all sorts of corruption and processes to dominate and hegemonize and get the homogeneity of the field of the market. So I would say that our biggest challenge in social solidarity economy is a civilizational challenge. That's why we cannot think of social solidarity economy alone. We must think it together with other struggles of the women's fight, the end of racism, a liberty of sexual orientation, this process of production, rural production without agrotoxics and transgenics, etc. So we have genetically modified food. So when we discuss social solidarity economy, we should not be only in the field of thinking alternatives, but also besides thinking alternatives, we must be thinking critically about the world we are living in. It's naive to think that social solidarity economy could flourish and have results in the way society is organized today. So I would say that we have a more symbolic battle, symbolic, political, and also economical battle in our day-to-day lives. The current scenario in Brazil is a reflection of a global scenario of the speculative economy that is having big problem. We had this huge commodity prices fall, which affected enormously Brazil, but also other countries that depend on the exports of commodities like soy and all sorts of grains, stones, mineral, etc., which reduced the growth rate of China, for example, from 10% to less than 5%. In Brazil is the seventh biggest economy in the world. So what I've been seeing is that Brazil is in an enormous field that could be of expansion of the speculative economy from investors, because we have here in our country several protections. We didn't sign any treaties of free commerce because of our social movements in Brazil. So with this crisis that we are living today in Brazil, which is firstly a huge economic crisis, it was the opportunity to open up a huge political crisis here. So we are living now in an exception state. So we had a coup, and now we don't have democracy existing anymore because of international interests. So 2 days ago, for example, the government opened the size of a full country in Amazon to mining from external companies. It's also privatizing our main companies, state companies, like in energy and also in oil. So what's happening is that Brazil has a huge biodiversity and a huge state system of health, education, um, what's basic services in what was, I don't know the name in English, saneamiento. I don't know how it is in English. So it's providing water and clean water in the cities, and also of pensions. So all of this is public in Brazil today. And what we're living with this economic crisis that came because of commodities, and with the cup that we suffered, we are being attacked, and all these sectors are being slowly opened to the private sector, which is needing new fields of expansion. So you can imagine a country with 200 million people that has a full public health system now being privatized. So this is business, 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 and business. So many international healthcare systems are coming now to Brazil in this situation that we're living. So we are in a very, very difficult situation. Why did I put this context? Is that normally social solidarity economy, in solidarity economy, we are tackling the build-up of alternatives, and we discuss a lot of public policies. Now we came to a situation in Brazil that we cannot discuss about alternatives. We must discuss now on how to preserve minimally the conditions of public services for people that are getting back to poverty. So we had an inclusion in 12 years. We had an inclusion of 40 million people from the poverty that got introduced in the market economy and somehow being the medium class. Now they are getting back. So in 1 year after the coup, we got down 19 levels regarding other countries in terms of poverty or recreation. We are coming now to alarming situation of unemployment. So now social economy is not being able as a movement nationally to be proposing public policies, perspectives, possibilities, because now we are striving with other movements to just try to guarantee the basic conditions of the survival of the people. So in this way, I could say that the movement is much fragile in this moment, which is a pity. Another way of looking at the perspective, so this is more pessimistic because it's more from now on, which is going on now, so it's more present. I would say that in the medium term, maybe this can be good for solidarity economy because unemployment getting higher, people are now looking at ways to build by themselves other conditions of work. So self-management becomes again a possibility. This happens a lot in solidarity economy in general. When the country starts getting more unemployment, people start using solidarity means to try to organize their work. So this is something that is happening now. We're still in a shock after what happened. We could not imagine that this would happen. It's a little bit like thinking about Germany that could never imagine Nazism, the fascism to rise as it rose after the election of Hitler. We are in this state of shock, looking at how things could change so rapidly after a coup, and so everybody's still much immobilized in terms of building alternatives. We are more trying to resist and build resistance in the country. So this is the situation we're living now, an exception state. There is no way to not cohabitate. Only if you are a theoretical academy, intellectual thinker, then you can be pure. But when we talk about solidarity economy, we talk about economy, and we talk about economy, we talk about market, and to talk about market, we must live with this market. We must give our solutions. We must sell our services, sell our products to the market, and see how this works on. So we always had an interesting debate here in Brazil about this, about outside, inside. So should we build our own commerce system, our own consumption processes, our own networks of buying the supplies and so on and so else? And what we see is that, of course, we must advance in this because the actual way these systems work, they are not good for social solidarity, but we must also use what is there. We could think, when we think about the rise of capitalism, the transition from aristocracy that we had in the world, it was not like the bourgeoisie. They came and said, okay, we're going to do our own economy and that's it. No, they were only slowly, the commerce actors, they were only getting more and more strategic positions in a world that was not fit for capitalism. It was an aristocracy, and slowly they were dominating chains, economic chains, and with the time they came to power somehow. So this economy became the paradigm. I see the same thing in solidarity economy. I think the strategy that we have is that more and more we must be grasping chains, economic chains inside solidarity economy, and try to have these flows of economy, which is like flow of blood, to fuel the economy coming from social solidarity economy. So this is a slow process. This is not something that you think of. This is something that comes with a paradigm shift, with changes in the way people are buying. We are already seeing that many consumers, they think more about the process that made this product come into being. And when they think about it, normally the big corporations, the capitalist corporations, they try to produce stories and say that their way of building products is beautiful and so on and so on. But people more and more are perceiving that this is a huge lie. And then when you see that short circuits could be established, local markets, being in touch directly with the producers, you as a consumer or as a citizen, you get more engaged with this way of doing economy. So this is a process. But thinking that solidarity economy could live alone and build their own system at all is too out of reality, because people must eat every day. So if you are a producer in solidarity economy, you must try to get resources to survive. Your company must have some economical viability. So I would not say that we should grow solidarity economy outside the system. We must build alternatives. We must keep building them, but we must work with the society as it is. The question is, we should not be blinded and think that we could live in a solidarity economy inside capitalism. That's totally impossible, as I said already in the first question. So this is something that we must be playing with. I like very much when we talk about dialectical processes, where we change the world while the world changes us, and so on and so else. So I don't see any pure way of doing things. The state is an important actor which buys a lot of services and products. So if we have public policies that recognize social solidarity economy as a path to development, you have a huge force for solidarity economy. That's why the process of politics is so important, and that's why normally the capitalist companies, they know that, and that's why they keep their influential area on the governments. It's very important. This is an interesting question that puts Brazil or Latin America differently from Europe, for example, or Canada. In Brazil, what we miss a lot is solidarity economy in the services field, services sector. So providing education, services for old people, healthcare processes, lots of things in the area of providing services is very weak in solidarity economy in Brazil, and this is a pity because these are areas where we have more aggregated value. This has to do with the profile of people who do economy, so solidarity economy in Brazil, which are mainly poor people that didn't have school or higher school or university. So normally, solidarity economy is more involved in basic production processes. Oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you another sector where solidarity economy is growing is in recycling as well.
Mhm.
Well, so these are normally impoverished people getting together to try to find their own solutions, and self-management becomes something important. But since you don't have capital to build a higher level of industry, and you don't have enough education among the members, formal education, I mean, to start providing services, these are two sectors which are very, very weak in solidarity economy, which I miss a lot. So industry and services providing. I think another difference that we always perceived when looking at solidarity economy in Brazil, comparing it to other parts of the world, mainly Europe or Canada or United States, is that is the one in Brazil is very politically oriented. So we have a recognition of the movement of solidarity economy in Brazil as an anti-capitalist movement. We don't have any shame to say this, and we feel this somehow in other countries of the so-called first world, that solidarity economy avoids presenting itself as a counterposition more politically to capitalism. We see this in some grassroots processes in solidarity economy. I saw a lot of this in Spain. It could be an exception, but somehow there is a low profile of politicization of solidarity economy movement outside of Brazil. I have this feeling, and in Brazil we feel a lot identified with other politically centered struggles, as I said to you before, mainly the women's movement, the movements for against the use of agrotoxics and others. So, which we could call left wing politically centered movements that think about social liberties and social equality as important. So maybe this is another thing that I would highlight as a difference, and I see this as very, very important. Yeah. And the problem is that we have difficulties to understand that when we say solidarity economy, we're talking about economy. When we're not talking about the initiative, the experience, the isolated experience. We are talking about this experience related to how the market, commerce, financing, so the economy as a whole work. And this is one of the main differences that we should have between solidarity economy and for example, cooperativism. Because cooperativism, as its name says, it's focused in a legal form of organization where you have a society of people instead of a society of capital. That's it. So if we look at cooperativism as itself, today it's not seen as a confrontation to capitalism at all. It's only an enterprise which has lots of people and which are partners. But you can have your way of working with society can be totally capitalist. So you're not talking about changing the economy. I'm not talking about all cooperatives, of course. I'm talking about, for example, the mainstream cooperatives in Italy, for example, where we have even strikes of workers of cooperatives because they are not having enough spaces to have social justice. So when we talk about solidarity economy, we should talk about economy. And it's impossible to talk about economy without talking about capitalism, because capitalism is our paradigm in economy today. So do we want to feel economy as it is, or do we want to change economy? That's the question that sometimes I feel that many people that are involved in solidarity economy refrain to reply. And this is an error, in my opinion, because we are suffering of the way society is built in capitalism. So we put too much fault in ourselves when our initiatives don't work, our self-managed initiatives don't work, and we think that always our fault. No, we have a system which is not established for our ways of working and producing and doing things to flourish. So we must be more realistic about this. That's why building networks of solidarity economy, building movement of solidarity economy is essential, but not only to get good conditions for our initiatives. So we are not a syndicate, a union of initiatives simply. No, we are talking about economy. We're talking about public policies. We're talking about the organization of the market, a market-centered, or a society centered in the market, I mean, sorry. And what we want in solidarity economy is a society centered in life. So that's what we're talking about. So this is confrontation. This is confrontation. So we must not be ashamed of it. But it's the moment we're living in the world where we are ashamed of everything that could somehow give the idea that this could be left wing. So we are ashamed of being progressive. Yeah, this is a very, very interesting question. I've been talking a lot about it. I see that, that's why I see that the symbolic fight is so important. Somehow, because of the division of the world we had during the Cold War, there was a huge work of marketing trying to change the meaning of some of the words. And one of the words that was much affected by this propaganda is profit. So today we have a general positive vision of profit, general, including inside solidarity economy. It's very difficult for the people to understand what profit is. People say that we need profit to survive, and we don't understand that profit is what is outside the sustaining of the company, of the initiative. So when we see ourselves as the owner of an initiative, and we see ourselves also as workers of the initiative, which is solidarity economy, and we put our workforce inside the spreadsheet of the sustainability of the initiative, we don't need profit, because our work, the money we're getting for our work is included in the spreadsheet. Normally, a common capitalist enterprise puts the work of the owner outside of the spreadsheet. So as much profit you get, better it will be, because then you will get your own money. The problem is that when you see yourself as a worker, self-managed worker, and you put your work inside the spreadsheet, and you don't need profit, you are going against a huge pillar of capitalism. But where is profit becoming really capitalist? When the profit is a measure of success and is being used for a return for investors. But this is only a tiny part of the initiatives that are accessing money from the market, from the bourse, from the investors. These are those that are reproducing capital and not reproducing the means of livelihood. So even if we have a small initiative and we put ourselves outside the spreadsheet of sustainability of our initiative, this profit is not becoming a reproduction of capital. So this is not real profit. You're getting paid for all the work you're doing for your initiative that you belong to. So what people should try to learn is that we must change the tools that we use to measure the success and the failure of our initiatives, putting our workforce as owners inside the initiative. And then in this case, if we have also funds for reinvestment, funds for depreciation, and things like this, having all this inside the spreadsheet, we need no profit for the initiative to be sustainable. So people, somehow, the propaganda was so strong, that people really believe that profit is necessary for an initiative to survive. It's not profit when you have everything inside the spreadsheet for the doing the work, including your own work or not, but the work of the people who are doing the initiative is inside the spreadsheet. Profit is robbery. You are extracting money from the people who are working. So profit should never be seen as something positive. Never. In any case. Profit is robbery. So in an initiative of solidarity economy, when we talk about, for example, excedents that we have, it's decided collectively if it's going to be distributed among the people that belong, or it's going to be reinvested in the community or in the society. It's not the decision of a single owner or a single set of owners. So it's very difficult to understand that, to see profit as not necessary for the survival of an initiative. So this is a whole debate. These are the things that we are seeing in the society nowadays. Since we don't have a counterpart like we had in the Cold War, we have a hegemony of a unique thought, and then this is getting spread all over, and people are starting really to incorporate capitalism inside their subjectivities. Unfortunately.
Yeah, there is a lot there, yes.
Yes, well, RIPESS strives to be a kind of federation which respects the autonomies of each one of the continents, and so it's a kind of council of the different representations of countries inside each one of the continents. So it tries to somehow represent what's going on in solidarity economy in the countries which by themselves are getting represented by continental councils. So I see that RIPESS is very much important to give visibility of solidarity economy in an international level. It's hard because solidarity economy expresses itself very differently in different countries and in different continents. So I see that as a very important initiative to try to somehow grasp the bridge between what solidarity economy expresses and what it is in the practices of the experiences, because we have a huge distance between the local experience, which are very rich and they are providing lots of solutions around the world, and how does this express itself as proposals for society. This is very rare and very fragile. So what RIPESS tries to do is to shorten this distance between experience and the proposals that emanate from these experiences as public policies, proposals for development, for indicators of development, and so on and so else. So I see RIPESS as a very important initiative and very challenging initiatives, since people are so different and initiatives are so different, culturally different, and try to get common ground to see what does solidarity economy propose for society. So that's where RIPESS is. Yes, we're really happy about the acogimiento of the reception of the app by people. People are looking for it. So in Responsa, we go beyond simple solidarity economy. We also are very related to responsible consumption as a whole. So lots of other initiatives are there. Like sharing bikes and things like this, which are part of alternative economies. And people are liking to share. And also what is beautiful in Responsa is that you can share also your doubts and challenges that you're having to try to change your way of consuming, and other people can help you solve your problems. This is some of the parts that people are liking. What I feel now is that we must advance to create the way for the owners of the initiatives to also propose and offer offers inside the app. So that's where we want to go. But we have a very nice reception by society. People are downloading it, people are using it, people are already criticizing it, which is good. And so it's a kind of ways of solidarity economy where you can find things that are close to you and that you can create events, you can share, etc. So we are very happy about the results. It has much to do with the mission of our cooperative. That's the type of things that we really want to do.